What is up, YouTube? Recently, I'd been listening to the podcast that Pixel Game Squad themselves set up on Pixel Plus channel. And one reference that they made during this podcast that really settled in with me was talking about how much nostalgia is like a drug. So when we think about, we've talked about addiction on this channel. We've talked about, hoarding, FOMO, and all the other stuff. And we get the occasional comment saying that I'd rather be addicted, to buying games than drugs and alcohol, obviously. And there is some truth behind it, and I'm gone over that in the other videos. But in this one, we're going to talk more along the lines of why that the buying the games and toys and stuff from our youth really kind of becomes addictive in itself, and how nostalgia really is like a drug. They really talked a lot about it in that Pixel Plus podcast, and like I said, it really kind of sunk in because it really puts a label to it that you can kind of associate more with, agree with more. We're gonna just talk. Yeah, we're just gonna talk about that. So a lot of times I pinpointed when I got really into buying video games, I did it because it made me feel good. Specifically the hunting and the finding games from my childhood. That's kind of what started the whole collection in the beginning. Was I started off by bringing out my consoles from the closet, and I started watching some YouTube channels that talked about retro gaming. And my first goal in mind was just to get some games from when I was a kid, the games that I like to play. So, the obvious Super Mario 3, getting a Sega Genesis back because I couldn't find my Sega Genesis, playing Final Fantasy VII again, all the games that I loved as a child. But once I started doing that, once I started picking up, Super Nintendos, because I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up. When I picked one up, I'm like, hey, there's so many games out there I never played back then that I would love to play now. I should start looking for some games that, like that. So it went from games that I loved as a kid to just finding games in general. And we can go on and talk about that, but the big thing is talking about nostalgia. So there's been so many times, even lately, that I've been not necessarily game hunting, but just hitting up the thrift stores, because you never know what you can find in those places, guys. And one big thing that stood out to me was there was this Charlie Brown, but it was Snoopy laying on top of his doghouse, but it was a piggy bank. And as soon as I saw that in the thrift store, I instantly time traveled, as you would say, back to when I was a kid, and I remember having that same exact one. And when that happened, for lack of better words, was like almost like a euphoric release of chemicals in my brain that made me feel good and just made me feel like almost like a kid again, being in that room and seeing that piggy bank there, almost like just transforming back to then. And it made me feel like all nice and warm inside, made me feel good, and stuff like that. So, and as somebody that was addicted to drugs and stuff, and has done them in the past, it's almost a similar experience. Obviously not as long as, whatever, but it was really just like, wow, I can't believe this. I didn't buy it simply because at the time I was really cutting back on what I had, and I didn't really need any more stuff, and I was just like, okay. But it was just really cool to see. And a lot of the guys I know that they go to flea markets, they go to thrift stores, and obviously they'll buy stuff to resell, because a lot of times that's what they do. That's why they go there in the first place. But every once in a while, they'll run into the same kind of factor where they'll hit something that really just stands out to them from their childhood, from back in the day. It doesn't necessarily have to be childhood. Some of us are getting old enough now that 20 years ago is still not being a kid, really. So something like that was just really blown away. And it is just like a big spike of endorphins, serotonin in your brain, and makes you feel good. And a lot of people, that's what we need or I guess that's what we need or want. And with, especially with adulthood, guys, we got bills, we got events we have to go to. We don't have as much free time as we'd like. We're struggling with money and are just extremely stressed out. So for that little bit of time, that 20 to 30 second window where I was able to forget what's been bothering me and just relived some nostalgia, was amazing, guys. I can't, yeah. And I think a lot of times that's what happens with some of us when we get too into collecting, is we find something like that we love to do in the beginning, and we kind of take it too far. Once again, this is not everybody. I'm going on personal experience, and sometimes, what I've seen, some tall tale signs of other people that they might not see in themselves, so I'm not going to call anybody out. But it's just like you're chasing that childhood or younger good feelings. Like, I don't think people really remember how nice it was to school sucked for a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie, I was not a big fan of school, but other than school, you really had nothing to worry about. Your parents took care of your meals, the roof above your head, you got your homework done, and then you just had a few hours of free time, so you got to do basically kind of whatever you wanted for the most part. Obviously every family is different, but me personally, it was get out of school, make sure homework's done, play video games, go play with my friends. A simpler time where I didn't have to worry about money, job, paying bills, food, and stuff like that. So it was really just, yeah. So I think a lot of times we like to pinpoint that, and we find some kind of vessel to take us there. And in my case, like I said, with my collection addiction in the beginning, mine was just starting off by buying games that I had when I was a kid, and then being influenced by fellow YouTubers and stuff, and then deciding that I needed to pick up these video games too, that collecting looked fun. And I'm not going to say collecting's not fun, because it is. But I try to change my way of doing that to now where I can actually, I want to be more, I want to enjoy playing games more than I want to owning them, if that makes sense. So, I'd give a couple games up just to play Spider-Man 2. I've been enjoying the hell out of that game, and I would definitely give, sell a shelf full of games just to sit down and enjoy one game. And we set up these rules in this household now for buying games, so that way we kind of hold off on this little bit of a collection addiction for now. But this whole video is just reminding everybody out there that, nostalgia is a drug to some people. And I don't mean it to sound negative in a fact too, because obviously the pharmaceutical drugs will help you. So I think sometimes if you are struggling, I've found with me, there's a lot of times when I overthink. I am anxious, the anxiety, depression, nervous, whatever you want to say. And you can turn this into a positive by listening to a song from your youth, or something that, or even watching a movie. Like, some people don't understand that, like I used to joke that I used to watch Christmas Vacation even in the summer. And it was because I knew the movie, I knew the jokes, and I still laughed every time I watched it. But when I watched it, it made me feel good. I can kind of zone out. I can forget about stuff that's going on in the world, forget about the, stuff that's stressing me out, and just enjoy a Chevy Chase movie, Just enjoy something that makes me not think too hard, I guess is one thing. Being, suffering with anxiety and OCD, well, not really too much OCD, but, just anxiety and just overthinking. Finding something that helps me not do that is pivotal. It's great. It makes me, because life's about having fun, guys. If you're not having fun sometimes, then you really need to rethink your situation and try and figure out ways to improve that. I really got nothing else to talk to you guys about today. I just want you guys to know that, you know, if you guys ever have any issues with anything mentally, or just need somebody to listen to, or somebody to listen to you, reach out to me on Instagram, guys. Don't feel bad. Ask for help. I only want to throw this in at the end there. There's been a lot of male-based suicides in this area, and I'm a very big supporter of talking about what's bothering you, talking about issues, because yeah, men's mental health is in most parts of the world a joke, but I don't want that to be that way. So let's get rid of the taboo. Let's get rid of the stuff about talking about your feelings, men, and let's get better. So that being said, guys, I'm glad you're here today. Glad you listened, made it this far in the video. Awesome. I really appreciate you guys, even if you just skipped to the end and caught this last little bit. Thank you for coming and checking out this video today. So as always, my friends, stay retro, and I will see you in the next video.